In this engagement, we warp in on a Cyclone, hoping to get a nice little battlecruiser 1v1 fight going.
Spartans! What is your profession?
We see here the Cyclone's actually starting to get some shield boost cycles off, but he's not getting very much back, so from this we know that he's either a medium or a large shield boosting ratting fit. Around here we start seeing people come into local, so we start hitting our D-scan to see if anything's going to land on us. Here we see we have the Crow on grid with us, as well as a Brutix Navy on scan. That Brutix Navy could potentially put out a very large amount of damage and track us very well as well. So we kind of want to get off this grid pretty soon here. We decided to start playing a few little station games around this point, just to see if they are trying to bring anything else in on us. We make our first pass at the Brutix, and we're going to see here that he's actually a rail kite Brutix Navy, so he's going to hit hard at range, and we just really need to get on top of him if we want to win that fight. After seeing him being at about 30 kilometers here and still piloting towards us, we decided to start heating our prop and try and shoot ourselves into web range to actually grab tackle on him. You can see here that the Cyclone was in fact a PvE fit, and the Brutix actually is a really good fit, but if you get scram-webbed in a kiting fit, you're probably not going to have a good day. Here we're coming in on a Gila. Gilas have a decent amount of power grid and don't tend to use weapon systems that take a whole lot of fitting space, so you'll probably have a decent tank. We expect it to be buffer tanked with at least 1 or 2 large shield extenders. It'll take a little while to chew through. The Scepter comes in and secures tackle on me, which tells me that since I'm winning the fight against this Gila, they probably have something else on the way to try and fight me with. Once we see the Vigilant on skin, we panic a little bit. The Vigilant will have a very large amount of range control and be able to pin me down if he's blaster fit. Between him and the Gila, they'll have no problem taking me down. The Vigilant's landing on grid, which is bad news for me. As you can see, I'm all out of pace, and I have a lot of heat in my repairs and my guns. So I need to take this Gila down, pop a Scepter, and try and get out before the Vigilant secures tackle of his own. With this response time of the Gila's backup, I don't think that Gila survival was really on the table here, but if that Scepter had pulled out to range and just kept me pointed, the Rail Vigilant actually could have been able to take me down there, potentially. Here I'm warping in on our Raven. Raven's not particularly a great fight for my Hurricane. It's going to have a lot of damage and a decent amount of tank. Right here, I'm just hoping for a good 1v1. In this clip we're trying to convince a daredevil to slide on our dual web rail Merlin. If the daredevil is also rail fit, we'll be in trouble, but otherwise, having initial range control, we can have the daredevil burn slowly into us with his 90% web, and if he's blaster fit, then he won't apply very much until he gets right on top of us, so that's kind of our plan moving forward. Looking at the fit, we see a few fitting mistakes. First off, it's usually better with these frigates to go with a ancillary repair. And next, you should probably train up the T2 guns before he hops into the pirate faction frigates. A breacher is going to be a potentially rough fight because even though we will have range control, it is going to most likely be one of the dual tanked fits, so we're going to have a medium ancillary shield booster and a small ancillary armor repair, so it's going to have a beastly amount of rep for us to actually get through. We can see here that he still had 3 charges of paste in his small ancillary repair. This is something you'll generally see when they accidentally run their medium ancillary shield booster 1 cycle too long. They'll drain their cap and make it so they can't finish their entire set of armor reps. And that kind of lost him the fight there. Here we're using a Bellicose. The Bellicose is still somewhat seen as a weaker ship, potentially the weakest cruiser. However, you can now fit a 1600 plate and get a very nice amount of tank. Since we have missiles and we're going up against a laser platform, our goal is to try and get under this dude's guns. And about here we can see that he actually is dual web fit as well. So since we have an AB, a scram, and dual web, but he's scram, dual web, propless, we shouldn't have any problem with that.
Super DROELOE.
Here in local, he tells us that he actually burnt his guns, but as we just finished our rapid light reload and we're about to chunk through them completely, that wouldn't have mattered too much, we still would have won. Good fight, my man. Here we decided to let a Vexor land on us and go for the engagement. Kind of a bad engagement for us. The Vexor has a really good amount of tank and a really good amount of DPS. We kind of misplayed here a bit. We stayed on the Vexor when we probably should have focused on his drones until those were all down.
Man, I don't understand your trip, man.
With our tank very low and him seemingly very comfortable over-repping, we take this as our cue to try and get away. With his tank dropping so low, we get a little greedy and try and go back in for the kill, but turns out he was just baiting us. Feels bad, man. Here we have an AB Thorax, and we decided to play a few games to try and catch this kiting artillery stabber. You see him starting to move in to commit to the fight, actually get a point on us and trying to hold us down for the kill. But he kind of mispilots here. We heat our AB and our webs to pull in as close as possible, and he dips within 13, so we dual web him and just get on top of him. GG. He has what looks like a bit of an experimental fit here, so I can't say much about it, but I can say that I probably wouldn't go with a reactive armor hardener on pretty much any Tech 1 hull smaller than a battleship. Here we're warping in on a Jackdaw. Our biggest worry is that he's potentially a point-range kite Jackdaw, however with how close he is and how close he seems to want to be, that is not the case. One problem we'll really run into is the application of our heavy assault missiles versus a T3D hull. And that's going to really limit our DPS, so we're going to be relying somewhat on our newts to actually nude out his tank. This Jackdaw should have range control in this fight because we're both Scram web fit, but he'll have a higher base speed. Luckily, he doesn't seem to actually start trying to pull away from us before his entire tank's been nuded out. This fight, we're in our Thorax and we're warping in on a Vexor. It could be a potentially rough fight. The Vexor's going to tank pretty hard, do a really good amount of DPS, and potentially have some newts. As the Orthros lands, we're still doing really well against the Vexor, and we're actually about to pop him when we accidentally misclick and start keeping range on the wrong target, and the Vexor pulls out of range. Would have been a pretty sweet kill there. Here we're in our 10MN Coercer fit coming in on an Algos. We need to get our range up to probably about 10 kilometers as quick as possible and try and stay out there to hit them with our beams. Even though dual prop Tyrannuses have a pretty swell amount of range control in nullsec, this dude's not able to control me with it. Here I forget to reapply my web again, which this time I end up paying for. In this clip, we're letting a Tristan slide on us. We want to make sure that he's not trying to kite us out at first, so we start approaching him with a heated prop and getting scram web on him before seeing his fit, seeing if he's actually trying to kite. Seeing the newt supply means that this guy is in fact a brawling Tristan. Now what we really need to worry about is his newts will cause us problems in the future if we don't pull range past his newt range. So we're going to go out to about 7k if we can to try and pull some range on those newts. That way, in the future, we can actually run our armor and seal if it becomes necessary. We see here that it is still possible to pull past neuting range even if they're using the scoped variant of the newt.